We're going to talk about superfans. That's been a buzzword that we keep hearing about, but to get beyond the buzzwords and to get beyond just surface level topics, again, going beyond the surface, we're here to talk about someone that knows this better than almost anyone else I've talked to in the industry, and that's the CEO of SoundCloud, Eliah.
That's Layla, by the way, for those who don't know. Who knows Layla? Yeah, of course. There we go. Homegrown SoundCloud story.
Yeah, tell us more about that story.
All right. I will. Thank you for asking me to. Layla, I guess, 2024 went from no music, no fans, no streams, no nothing to now feels like every major wants to sign her. And it's just one of these homegrown SoundCloud stories. And that track Like That is what started it all. Her next track, Not My Problem, she did this remix contest. She put it out exclusively on SoundCloud. She did a remix contest, published a playlist of her fans' remixes and like her top 20 favorite ones. And one of them was from Cash Cobain, who then put together a supergroup to do the official remix. And now we're looking at some fan monetization opportunities with Layla to monetize her fan engagement on the platform beyond just streaming, which is a part of the conversation today. So really exciting story, and she's incredible. We've done this in partnership with Sycamore, who just prominent A&R leader in the industry with whom we have a joint venture, and our crew's super psyched. So look for more from Layla.
Dope.
Awesome.
Let's talk about SoundCloud. Before we get to Superfans or any of that, let's talk a bit about SoundCloud, because the business has evolved quite a bit. You go back to 2017 timeframe, the company was in a very different position. It was on the brink. You had artists like Chance the Rapper tweet about how he's going to try to save SoundCloud. And then you fast forward to today, 2023, that was your first profitable year you've had, and based on 2024, it looks like things may likely continue in that way. That's a huge accomplishment. But from a high level, walk us through how we get from SoundCloud 2017 to SoundCloud today. What are the steps to make that happen?
Sure. Yeah, SoundCloud is the healthiest the company's ever been. No doubt everybody in this room has heard of SoundCloud for sure, has probably used the app before, and then maybe not having used it as recently. And I think that's kind of what the history has been. The company was founded in 2007. But I'll table set with kind of what the business actually looks like, because I think that's ultimately the answer to the questions. Like, how did we go get profitable? And when I say we're the healthiest we've ever been, that's kind of across a few dimensions. Like, financially, we're the healthiest we've ever been. We're profitable. We're generating cash. Operationally, our product is innovating again, and I'll come to that in a second. And then the actual business that we're driving, like subscribers, like that's at record highs now. And then the relationship to industry and to artists and kind of that cultural influence. Like, I'm glad we started with Layla. Layla is a perfect example of the next artist that's going to be a global superstar who is homegrown off of SoundCloud. So that is kind of how we think about having gotten healthy across those different dimensions. But just to table set for all of us, because I think we've all kind of come in to SoundCloud at a different part of its 17-year journey. There are two sides to the house. There's what we call the fan business and the creator business. And the fan business kind of looks like a DSP. We view it more as a social music platform, but it kind of looks like a DSP. Hundreds of millions of fans coming to the platform to discover what's next in music. We're over 400 million tracks on the platform. So that's like, you get your 100 million that you would get at a traditional DSP like Spotify or YouTube or Apple, et cetera. And 300 million UGC tracks. Unsigned artists, hobbyists, some of the artists that Kakul talked about from Splice, the Laylas, the folks who are looking to get discovered, DJs, remixers, podcasters, so on and so forth. The vast majority of the listening is actually against the UGC content. So again, it kind of looks like a DSP because there's an ad-supported tier. We have 2 subscription tiers for fans. You pay $5 for a limited set of functionality. $12 a month for kind of the typical premium functionality. But ultimately, it's about music discovery. There's a lot more kind of social engagement for fans, and we think of it more like a social platform for music. And it's all about new music. Half of our listens are against new music, frontline music. At a Apple or a Spotify, that's 15%. So more than 3 times as much of the listening time is against new music. That's just the fan side. The creator side is the other side of the house. That's our other business segment. And that's tens of millions of artists on the platform posting their music, either as hobbyists or to get discovered, to find their fans. And a fraction of those are paying us a subscription for access to automated products, tools, and services to get going. So you've got a track, now you got to get heard. We know from our audience research, and Tati from Media has done a ton of amazing research on this, the thing artists want most in those early days is to get heard, find their fans. It's impossible. It's like by 8 to 1, it's the thing they need and want the most. We're the only creator platform in music with direct access to fans. And we have a creator subscription that actually allows artists to tap into finding those fans and getting creators heard. That Layla story is a good example because she became a subscriber on the creator side of our business. And that allowed her to opt into this AI capability that put her music, that song like that I just walked out to, in front of fans on the platform who might like it, because we know what those fans are listening to and what their consumption behavior is like. And that ability to cut through the noise and get a creator heard by the fans on the platform is differentiating for us. So the fan business, the creator business, those are the 2 business segments. It's a flywheel. Fans are coming to the platform to find those creators, discover what's next in music. Creators are coming to the platform to tap into those fans, find their fans, build that fan base. That's what got us healthy. We focused on that flywheel. It's like, that's what matters for us. And for us, what was differentiating was that we were a 2-sided marketplace, touching both artists and fans. And once we focused on that, then things really took off.
And the thing that's unique about running a profitable DSP is that that concept itself is something that has been a bit of attention and not necessarily something you've seen executed on in the industry, because when you look at things from a traditional perspective, the largest tech companies in the world, they have music streaming services. A lot of those services are great. But when you look at the big picture of those companies, they are things that help generate content, generate attention for other parts of their business. And then other companies that may be more traditional DSPs, they are looking at non-music audio and things like that in order to just have audio that is less costly to stream. So for you all, things are a little different because, yes, a lot of it is still music focused, but between the user-generated music that's on the platform that may be less expensive from a cost perspective to stream than maybe others, and then some of the creator pieces, you're able to make that work to have a profitable business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you look at the challenges of a standalone streaming platform is that they have to pay the vast majority of every dollar out the door to content owners. And that's why they've tried to control more of that cost, control more of that content, control more of that programming. And there was a period of SoundCloud's history where that was the playbook, and that was not a path that was going to be differentiating. Being a subscale Spotify is not a business model. So that flywheel of creators finding fans, fans finding creators is differentiating for us, and creators opting into the subscription that can get them to cut through the noise, build a fan base, cultivate a fan base on the path to monetizing that fan base. That has been what's differentiating. And that has given us the freedom on the streaming platform side of our business to act a little different. And that has meant, just a couple examples from this year. Billie Eilish's studio album in May. You know, Billie thanked SoundCloud from the Grammy stage when she won her first Grammy. Homegrown SoundCloud story from years ago. For her second studio album, SoundCloud wasn't really in the mix. We weren't part of the story. We don't really have enough market share to move the needle. There wasn't a draw for her. But since we've kind of reset our approach to how we engage fans, how we engage artists, and what that whole two-sided marketplace looks like, things were different this past May. So she did an app icon takeover in kind of Billie's blue Pantone that that was driving her album release. But then we went and found her first 50 fans, and we gave them exclusive access to Billie and exclusive access to content. As a homegrown artist, you know, these were the first 50 followers that Billie Eilish had before anybody had heard of Billie Eilish. And we went and found them and gave them something special. And they could carry that as a badge and status of their fandom. You know, imagine if we could productize that. You know, Shaboozey, we were just talking about Shaboozey backstage with Ghazi, obviously major Empire success. Shaboozey was a SoundCloud Day One artist from 2014. Maurice knows what I'm talking about. He found him. But Shaboozey, you know, he was 10 years ago posting music on SoundCloud. If we could go find those first 50 fans, first 100 fans that followed Shaboozey and contributed to Shaboozey taking off, what a way to like gamify and electrify the fan experience on the platform and make it more social.
What this goes back to is something that we talked about with Troy in the first session, which is taste. SoundCloud has always been a platform for the tastemakers. You go back to the SoundCloud rap days, it's probably still one of the only platforms that was synonymous for a subgenre of music, and that still is what carries it through today. So even though there's been iterations of what the strategic focus is, who is the company that you're trying to compete with, it's always been about taste.
100%. Back before I came to SoundCloud, when I was at Warner, Lior used to talk about it as cool kids in the playground. And this segmentation of fans exists in the music industry, and they're starting to be defined by the streaming platforms that they go to. You know, you have lean-back listeners who want to just flip on a playlist or you know, something basic on the way to work, and that's their experience with music. That's fine. 50% of SoundCloud users, 50, so half our user base are deemed superfans, and we'll come to this, I know, later in the conversation around what this has meant for us, but superfans generally are spending more than 6 times the amount of money on music over the course of the year as an average fan. Historically, they're not spending that money on SoundCloud, and we're obviously looking to change that. But our users are tastemakers, they're crate diggers, they're leaned in, they want to find ways to express their fandom for artists and music that they love. And in Western markets, it's actually kind of hard. And I know we'll get into that in a bit.
Let's talk about that now. I feel like it's timely with just the superfan conversation. So, of course, title for this session, it's a conversation we keep hearing about. Everyone's trying to monetize and figure out how do you extract more value. But I think the difference, at least from conversations you and I have had, is that it's less about extracting value, because that can very much be a conversation focused on what can I take from the current people that are listening to gain more, as opposed to flipping that on its head. What can I do to add value? What can I do to add value that a music fan actually wants? And then if you're adding enough value, creating something that they would actually want to pay more than $10.99 a month for. So what does that look like for SoundCloud in the context of superfans?
Yeah, we're living and breathing this. I think the conversation in music turning very much to super fandom is like highly validating for SoundCloud. In 2007, our founders, they had a founding purpose for the business, which was to empower creators and fans to share, engage, and connect through music. Nothing separating artists and fans, just artists and fans connecting on the platform together. And I think it took 17 years for that notion to be at the center of gravity in music. And if you look at, there are a couple market dynamics that tee up why fan monetization is going to work in our view, and why we think we've got a pole position to do this. One is that streaming's not enough. We talk about this a lot. Streaming is not enough for artists. Vast majority of artists don't make enough money from streaming. 85% of songs make less than $5. There are 80 million tracks that get less than 100 plays. There are 46 million tracks that get no plays. Unless you're a global superstar, you're not making enough from streaming to pay the bills. So streaming has saved the music industry, but as it decelerates growth, we have to ask ourselves, like, what's the format that's coming next? Where is more money coming from? And that brings up the second market dynamic, which is streaming's not enough for fans either. And the all-access model might be fine for somebody who's just like throwing on today's top hits, and that's their experience with music a couple times a week. For the artists we're concerned about, for the fans that we're concerned about, streaming is insufficient. And you could loop your favorite track on a DSP. You just can't get enough 24/7. You're paying the same subscription dollars that somebody who forgot that they are subscribed to that service is paying. And yet there's this latent demand to express fandom monetarily. Like, we know this. When I was at Warner, I ran ADA, the independent distribution business there. BMG was our biggest partner. One year, their biggest commercial success was a Keith Richards box set. It was like bigger than this speaker. Like, it was a piece of furniture. It was this lacquer thing. It may have had music in it to play. But there were 1,000 people on the planet who would have paid anything for it. And they paid $1,200 a pop, and they had to have it. It wasn't about the music, it was about their fandom. And so this notion of super fandom might be new to music, because Lucian wrote about it this year as like in his letter, and like now everybody's like, okay, this is it. This is as old as commercial music is old. Like, fans will go wild. The Eras Tour is an extreme example of this. People will literally spend their life savings to cross the pond to go to Taylor's concert and buy all of her merch and everything. And streaming has not killed this, but it has suppressed super fandom. If you all want to spend $50 on your favorite artist right now in music on your phones while I'm talking, it's kind of hard to do that. There are other creator verticals where it's easier, but it's pretty hard in music. Meanwhile, at SoundCloud, like, fans are coming to our platform to engage in this way already. We haven't monetized it historically. They're coming, to stream a track, but they're also coming to comment on the track and to DM the artist and to DM another fan and to build a fan community and to find out about early access to tickets and maybe to get access to a private link. They're coming to have these different social, engaged, leaned-in, tastemaker, crate-digging experiences. So we feel like we've got this pole position because we were founded to do this. Connect artists and fans together directly. So if super fandom is going to be monetized, our view is it's going to happen in SoundCloud. So how are we actually doing that? You can get ready for your eye roll, because there are the most obvious things in the world to do. It's like fulfill merch. Like, last month we launched a merch store for the first time in our history. I'm sporting this hat, by the way. Go to the SoundCloud merch store. This could be yours, any color you want. I really feel like, Tunji represents a brand where people want to wear the Def Jam jacket. Ghazi represents a brand where people like have an affinity for Empire. Very few of these brands in music. SoundCloud, we feel, is one of them. But what the merch store is really about is fulfilling opportunities for artists on the platform. And that's less about doing Taylor or Billie's merch. It's more about an artist who found their first 20,000 fans on the platform and can start to monetize those 20,000 fans who love that artist. They just love her. They want to loop the music. They don't want to tip her, because that's a one-way interaction. They want to have a two-way engagement. It's the same idea that drove Kickstarter, that drives GoFundMe. Like, this notion of a two-way street where a fan can express their fandom and get something in return. Merch is an example. I think another good example for us is the private link. Private links for people in this space is like synonymous with SoundCloud. We have 90 million private links at SoundCloud. For those who don't know, that means the artist has not shared the music with the world. They've just shared it with their collaborators or their family or friends or maybe just themselves. For the first time, we're experimenting with giving an artist the ability to charge their top fans for access to that music as a private link, a paid private link. We're not forcing it. It's not like no longer can you have a free private link on the platform. It's just, if you want to go find your top 1% fans, and for an exclusive window of 1 week, charge them $2 a fan for access to that song, you're going to make more money from that 2-week exclusive with that paid private link than you'll make for streaming on that track for your entire career. This is not about artists who have 50 million followers on the platform and adding more money to their pockets. Like, that'll be great, and I think they'll help us market and promote these sorts of tools that we're experimenting with. What it's about is the Laylas of the world who are looking to get discovered, who are looking to build their fan base, who are looking to pay their rent early on before they become a Def Jam artist, and can start to monetize fandom, because streaming's not enough for that artist, and streaming's not enough for the fans on our platform. And by solving that problem with ways to drop new dollars on the platform that fans want to spend and artists need to make, we're starting to make that happen. Merch, paid private links, early access to tickets, early access to content are obvious examples. But ultimately, I think it's going to be much more immersive, and we're going to live in a world where, like, you know, you wake up one day and you dress your SoundCloud avatar in a Layla t-shirt for 2 SoundCloud pennies, and that becomes your way of expressing your fandom that morning. That times a trillion is a new marketplace in which fandom is monetized. And that's where I think super fandom's going. And it's based on this premise that as streaming has allowed all of us to have, breathe new life into the music industry, that has been amazing, but streaming is not enough. And I think we've got a pole position to solve that problem.
So we have private links, we have exclusives, we have merchandise. What's your process like for figuring out which things would be effective that we should be launching versus which things are, I don't know about that?
Great question. We're a product-led company, so you need a product organization that is just cooking. You know, for those who have not been to SoundCloud in several years, I urge you all to come back to the platform. The last 2-3 years, incredible deep bench of product engineering, design talent has reset the ability of this company to innovate and pioneer in music tech. And there's a shit ton of tech debt now in the rearview mirror, so we can actually start experimenting against these things. And we're partnering with others who can do the same. So we have a partnership with Fader, FADR, and Soundful, 2 amazing AI music creation tooling companies, We've run an experiment with Fader with Tinashe to run a remix contest, or with Cascade for like a sound-alike collab that was driven by Soundful. So we're not just doing it on our own, but we're finding partners to experiment with, like, why do fans come to the platform? How can we leverage the way they are already engaging on the platform and make it fun, gamify it? Our head of strategy talks about play with music. We want them playing with music. And I'll keep them on the platform, I'll keep them engaged, and then let's just start dropping dollars on it. The paid private link is the one that I'm most excited about, because we have 90 million of those. Like, if we get it wrong, okay, we'll move on to the next. If we get it right, I'm hosting this event next year in fucking Bora Bora, and it'll be a great situation. But we want to leverage why fans come to the platform to begin with and just start testing. And now we finally have a product organization that can do that.
Makes sense. Shifting gears a bit, at the beginning of this year, there was an announcement that SoundCloud is up for sale. And I know that there have been active conversations. And I can only imagine there was a lot that led up to it, because one of the things about SoundCloud is that there have been 4 big stakeholders that have each had their own influence and have each had their own say in the company. So there's Union Square Ventures, Rain Group, Temasek, and SiriusXM, which had came in with an investment a few years back. And a lot of your role as CEO is managing those expectations as you're trying to push the company forward. What has that process been like?
Love the due diligence you did on our shareholder base, Dan. This is impressive stuff.
This is Trapital.
So, yeah, we've actually been kind of atypically transparent about the fact that we're going to market, and we are now just in the early phase of going to market to talk to potential new capital partners. So I'll take a step back and talk about, and then bring you up to speed on where we are on that. The step back is, you mentioned 4 of our shareholders. You didn't mention the other 40. It is a very fragmented shareholder base. 17-year-old startup, a lot of folks who have come in. Those 4 you mentioned are, what we would call principal shareholders. But we have a very fragmented shareholder base who are very supportive, but they're old capital. Company hasn't raised capital in 6 years. That's when Sirius came in. A couple years before that, Rain and Temasek saved the company. Like they did a buyout, and had they not done it, probably would have gone bankrupt. And I manage a board where I think of having 5 bosses, because I would add to those 4 principal shareholders our founder. One of our 2 founders is on the board too. So we have lots of different shareholders to consider, but none of them have come in this market dynamic where streaming is starting to plateau, where streaming is not enough for artists or fans, where fan monetization is the thing that's next, where there's clearly consolidation coming with the rise of independence. Literally all of your topics today are like, basically, I want to just copy what's on the screen and just put it out to capital partners. Like, this is our story. No shareholder in SoundCloud has come in behind this market dynamic, behind this thesis we're driving, behind the team that we've put together. And where this conversation started was getting SoundCloud the healthiest it's ever been. When I became CEO a little over 1.5 years ago, that was the first thing we had to do, because we knew eventually we were going to go to market. Eventually we wanted to go talk to capital partners who share this vision, who do want to help us scale the mountain and define what's next in music, and not just for SoundCloud, but for the whole ecosystem. And we needed to get profitable first. So when we have finally come to market, to start to talk to potential financial sponsors, potential strategic partners, combinations of the two, it's been from a position of leverage. The company's healthy, we're generating cash, every operating metric is up and to the right. We're finally in a place where the music ecosystem is ready to take advantage of what we do, which is bring artists and fans together directly. And now's our moment. So we're out there, we're talking to folks. We've just started that process, kind of the back end of the summer, and it has been really exciting. The story's resonating, and we'll see where it goes next. But we want to be more transparent than one would typically be, because I think we've earned that right. Like, we're on the hunt. We want to go find that right partner who shares our vision for where the future of music is going, and we want to pair up with them to define what's next in music the next few years.
We see the campaigning. We see you're out there. We get it. Definitely. Well, Eliah, before we wrap things up, I want to ask you to make a prediction, because we had dinner a couple months back, and you had shared with the room one of the predictions you had, and it was about AI. It was before a lot of these tools blew up, and you were right. You talked about how the 120 tracks that are uploaded daily to DSPs will look small compared to what's now possible. So, with this audience here, where do you see things now? Is there one big prediction that you have for the industry?
Well, first off, if Trapital ever invites you to a dinner, I would say go to it, because we did 2 deals coming out of relationships that I made from just going to that dinner. So thank you for that.
That's great to hear.
Pretty awesome. And just like, yeah, seriously, it was really awesome. And this setup of like pulling people together to engage on these topics and spend the day together is very you and very Trapital, and it's distinctive. So that's awesome. Coming back to your question, yeah, we talked in that room at Freeman's that night about how 120,000 tracks a day was there was such a challenge to cut through that noise. And yeah, I mentioned, which I don't think was a controversial prediction, that I thought that number was going to increase a lot, given the rise of music tooling that is AI enabled. And I still think we're in the early innings of that. But another prediction might be that I think My sense is that there's going to be change in the majors' business models. The majors have the benefit of massive catalogs that allow them to withstand a lot of change in music. But the catalogs aren't infinitely valuable because you need to continue to own rights to replenish those catalogs as time goes on. Like when you think about increments of 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Much harder to own rights these days. Will become harder and harder and harder to own rights these days because artists have more choices and can get more lift on their own and will sign to majors, which many of them want to do, more on their own terms than majors' terms. So majors are going to need to figure out, like, how do they alter their long-term business model? And I think you're going to see that happening. I think the change in how streaming payouts get made was one of those steps, one kind of a canary in the coal mine for that. I think the focus on super fandom is another one. But I think that there will be real meaningful business model change to the major side because there needs to be, but I also think that that each of those three companies are helmed by people who are going to be willing to be courageous on that front, and that might involve a lot of deal activity and consolidation out there as well.
Well, we'll definitely follow up with you on that one. Eliah Seton, thank you.
Thank you.